paranoid na.
Yes, sir. Okay lang.
Thank you. Sige. Okay, another case study. Chula Vista in California. So 134 square kilometers, total population of 240. I think this is as of 2020 when I gave this lecture. So this is sort of a coastal district. One other thing I forgot to mention previously is that take note of the geographic location of these cities because they might also play a role. But for the most part, let's see here. Sarasota County is another coastal district. Ramapo is sort of like an upland, maybe on. It looks like it's a inland district, like with no large bodies or not large bodies of water nearby. And then Chula Vista is near the coast. One reason why I want to point this out, if it's district districts near the coast, I feel have like a advantage over those in the mountains because coasts are historically where a lot of economic activity happens, and I think it just has more opportunities than those up in the mountains. So in Chula Vista, they had a adequate what's APF again? I forgot my own acronym. Adequate public facilities sort of standard guideline. So their air quality is monitored by an annual report from the Air Pollution Control District. Their sort of fiscal or finances is monitored by an annual report required to evaluate impacts on growth and city operations, capital improvements. I think there's something going on, something similar in the Philippines. It's just that it doesn't make the headlines. It's very kanang on the down low in the manner of speaking. In the manner of speaking, we have police, fire, fire, EMS. I'm not sure what that means. Fire respondents. You have reports on schools, libraries, parks and recreation, water, sewage, drainage, and traffic. So for me, I will just be looking at water, sewage, drainage, electricity, but they even expanded their sort of standards to include fiscal policies, the police department, the fire department, education, and parks and recreation. So you can already tell that Chula Vista has its sort of management programs in order. So this is just zooming in on those different standards. So for example, let's look at parks and recreation. So maintain 3 acres of neighborhood and community parkland with appropriate facilities per 1,000 residents east of Interstate 807. So Interstate 807 is the name of a road. So the amount of sort of what they call this political will that has to be maintained for a document like this to exist and be enforced, for me is just very kind of staggering because I don't think just based here in my living of Cebu, I don't think there is very weak sort of community will, like working together. In a way, I'm thankful that the pandemic gave us an opportunity to come together as a community because of the pandemic, we have sort of the new what they call this, the new jeepneys. We have for the first time, I think, ever in Cebu City's history, we have bicycle lanes. Not in the entire city. We have sections in what they call this, sections near IT Park. Mandaue City, I think, has the better sort of bicycle lanes, and in some parts of Lapu-Lapu and Cordova. So we'll take what we can get. What I'm trying to say is just creating this document is a lot of hard work. So if you want to stay, especially in sort of the public services for urban design, prepare to go to a lot of town hall meetings and talk to and negotiate with a lot of mayors, barangay captains, etc. But it goes without saying that Chula Vista was very successful in their growth development. I don't think I added a population map here because I think it's just very obvious from this. Okay, another case study is Carlsbad. The document I'm going to share with you, I think, talks about how they made this, but we'll more on that after class. So Carlsbad, California. This is, and again, another coastal district. We have population data here, 1970s. Again, that large increase, 137%. This actually happened in 1980s for Carlsbad, California. And then it tapered down to, wow, it's still at 30% as of the 2010s. I think the newest population data will be available. So I'm just using Wiki here because like statistical data for the US is hard. It's a bit difficult to come by if you're here in the Philippines. So if I was there, I would probably just go to the statistics office or maybe even their website. Okay. So how do they manage these this kind of growth? So Carlsbad 3-tiered growth management program. So they have they focus on the following standards. They have what do you call this? Performance standards, provisions of facilities, and then funding of facilities. So they focus on establishing standards, showing existing inventory and future build-out needs, then outlining various funding options. So within that, you would have these standards need to show or should comply with development as it occurs, demonstrate that the standards will be maintained before they give out. If the developer wants to create something, they need to demonstrate that the standards will be maintained. And then let's see here. It shows how and when new facilities will be funded and constructed to accommodate growth. That's for their provisions of facilities. And then developers must highlight all conditions of approval, must compile with specific facilities, be constructed concurrent with development plans, etc., etc. So basically, it's very much regulated, and there is like policies and laws in place to make sure nobody steps out of bounds. And you have other standards here for, again, libraries, water treatment, parks, drainage, circulation, fire, open space, schools, and sewer and water, sort of sewer collection and water distribution. And this is just zooming in on those standards. And then, what do you call this? Just a few more notes. There are some unintended or undesirable consequences of growth management programs. So measures, standards, and judgments in AFP capacity is not foolproof. So it really depends on the local community, the government, and sometimes even external factors that are beyond the local community's control. So exaction and impact fees to finance infrastructure, these are sort of the funding, need to cover a variety of ways in which developers are required to contribute. So no one can sort of like evade sort of loopholes, create loopholes in the system so that they won't pay. There also need to be equity considerations, legal constraints, and specifically for the US, many communities have embraced the concept of exactions and impact fees as a means of shifting costs for new development to the private sector. So removing the burden from the sort of the public sector or the local communities, making sure that the larger companies that can afford it are the ones who pay for it. Special tasking districts may be created. So may be called by authorities or commissions, provide services to residents with circumscribed areas. So what does this mean? A special taxing district is an area where tax is sort of reduced to promote growth. In our other class, we discussed about this. So the advantages for this kind of system is that they avoid overtaxing the general public, and then because they have a more controlled sort of system for collecting taxes, they can deliver projects in a more efficient way. Now, the disadvantages of this kind of system is that if you apply it too much, it may weaken the power of local government. So they don't their, what they call this, since we reduce the amount of taxes they get, they won't have enough revenue, so they won't have sort of their own budget to apply their own programs. So they need to have some kind of compensation for those sort of special districts. And then different qualities, different kinds of services, different providers may lead to confusion. So this is the example here is that the state level or the higher level government steps in to provide these sort of tax breaks, but if another sort of entity outside of the town comes in, it may create sort of several different services because they're given out to sort of different contractors, if you think about it that way. So there'll be different groups coming into that town, which may lead to many services, which may lead to confusion among the constituents of that district. So another way of sort of applying this, it's called an alternative special district or a special tax district. And then basically, this is just a closing of the slides where in Cebu City, there is an identified sort of growth boundary. This was, I think, from a report by Ramon Sevilla, who is also, I think retired now. I think used to be a faculty member as well, or a speaker at the very least, like a lecturer on urban planning in Cebu. He's still very vocal in sort of some non-official groups. I've been in meetings where his name comes up. Sometimes he's even in the meeting there. He's very passionate about Cebu City, but some people say that what he's saying is not correct anymore. Maybe it was correct in the 70s, but it may not be appropriate for this time. But anyway, the message is still here that cities in the Philippines, especially, need to identify these growth boundaries. Otherwise, we may end up overburdening our local communities, our constituents, our people, and then overusing our existing natural resources, which is supposed to be the highlight of the Philippines. So basically, yeah, just manage growth. And then I mentioned before that we want densification, but there is a limit. We cannot, there has to be a balance between urban areas and rural areas, and we don't want to over-densify so that we create spaces like this. I think this only happens in China, where there's such a demand for getting out of poverty, that people are willing to live in these kinds of conditions where it's not sanitary anymore. But we're starting to see more and more areas like this in the Philippines as well. Although it's not as vertical, it's still more sprawling because the materials are not strong enough to go that high. If you just look around in Cebu City, in Cebu Province, you will see the squatter areas are still very prevalent. I think all over the Philippines, each sort of community has their own sort of informal settlement area. And then it's basically like this, but it's not vertical. And what we're proposing are not vertical informal settlements. We're proposing livable, high quality, diverse mixed-use areas. So this is the extreme of densification which we want to avoid. So urban design and planning solutions must take into account the specific context of the project. So whether you're developing a subdivision, whether you're developing a small maybe even a new commercial area, airport, public market, what have you, you must really do your homework and then research what kind of people are here. Who is this project for? Who's paying for this project? And making sure that the goals of that project, number one, align with the needs of the city, and then are the goals actually feasible? So in Cebu in particular, we have the Metro Cebu group. I think they're the Metro Cebu MC Development and Coordinating Board, MCDCB. Yeah, I think that's it. There's so many acronyms. But the sort of the roadmap for Cebu City, this was developed, I think, 2015, or maybe even a bit earlier than that, where Cebu City, Mandaue City, and Lapu-Lapu City will be the main work areas for industrial, manufacturing, export processing, and having high density commercial areas and residential areas. While the others, municipalities and cities like Talisay, Minglanilla, Cordova, and Consolacion will become the green buffers, and their sort of major service will be parks, preservation zones, tourism, and residential areas as well. So if you look at the pattern, it's sort of like a radiating pattern where you have the three largest cities in the center, and then it spreads out a bit, not in the same way urban sprawl spreads out, but these are ideally, or hopefully, these will be controlled growth and not just residential growth, but commercial, tourism, manufacturing, and the industrial growth as well. And then there really is what we call a carrying capacity, or the maximum amount of people that can live in a certain area, that needs to be applied to these three core cities: Cebu City, Mandaue City, and Lapu-Lapu City. I think there are studies ongoing to determine that number right now. And then I think it should be done, but I'm not, I haven't seen it yet. I think some of you may have already seen it. That's why once Cebu City, Mandaue, and Lapu-Lapu have reached their maximum carrying capacity, then we start to develop the city of Naga and the city of Danao. So up here to the north, we have Danao, and down here, Naga. So they will also provide industrial, manufacturing, export, etc., but in a different location. So this sort of spreading out helps prevent cities to look like this. But I don't think let's just not kanang doom scroll or think about what the worst that could what possibly what terrible things might happen. Let's just focus on being optimistic and try to get evaluate and make the most of this existing roadmap study. So the initial talks for this study were started in 2011. And then here are sort of the key events. I can provide this document. I just took a picture of this because I was rushing. I should have scanned this, but again, many events. So we are working in collaboration with Yokohama-based company. So Yokohama, that's Japan. And they're using case studies from Bangkok, Thailand, Da Nang City in Vietnam, and Batam City in Indonesia. So we're looking at how they develop and sort of learning from them as well. So in this class, we use examples from the US, but hopefully in the next few years, I can track down the results of the studies here. So unfortunately for you, you're one of the earlier batches under me, but maybe in the future, I can develop this lecture even further. And maybe you can also develop your studies further by looking at examples from these countries as well. And now we move on to the assignment portion, which let me just review this. Here, okay. My throat is really going away. My voice, I mean. Let me just get some water. But let's just leave off here. Let's take a quick, I don't think we need to take a quick break because I was downstairs. It's already 2:24. Let me just get a glass of water. Excuse me. Okay. So for the assignment, let me check the syllabus. Let me close all of this. Okay. So we were supposed to do an analysis report last week, but we were delayed 1 week. And because for some reason the Squires chapters are gone, we will just have an analysis report on urban sprawl and growth management. So based on our lecture today. And then let's create this report according to this structure. So some of you may already have tried this in your classes. This is how we were taught in Sydney. And this is my own preference on how reports should be constructed. So you have 4 main parts. You have your introduction, your body, and then your conclusion. So what's inside your introduction? It's as as basic as it gets. The introduction of your assignment makes a general statement about the issue, topic, area under discussion. It sets out the main structure of your assignment, and then it sets out your thesis or your point of view. And it will also include, I think this is still in the introduction, this statement here. It must be brief, but include all of your main ideas. So how brief is brief? So I'm thinking about, sorry, I need to take this. Okay. All right. Sorry. Okay. So the body, this is where you assemble your evidence of your research and thinking. So what is the main point of your research? So you would have, oh, sorry, I was going to say introduction would be about 100 to 200 words. The body can have, let's say, 500 to 1,000 words. So this is really, you can go crazy here. So the body is where you assemble the evidence of your research and your thinking. You'll be assigned on the you'll be assessed on the development and relevance of your information and any discussion based on that information. Your research should carefully acknowledge the in-text referencing, and then if the assignment question has more than one part, structure your body into those sections. For example, if there's 2 questions to the discussion, you would separate that into 2 paragraphs or 2 sections. And then finally, the conclusion is the review of your assignment. It sums up the whole argument, the whole sort of text. It makes references to the key terms in the assignment question, etc., etc. I'll just share this with you later. So the issue now is, what will be the assignment question? Let's make a new slide here. So report question or report topic. So we talked about, let's just go through our assignments here. Let's see. So mostly our assignments have been on the QGIS side, but we talked about over here. Sorry. My throat is really dying. The comprehensive land use planning in the Philippines. You should have access to the land use planning guidebook, as well as the policy brief on prime agricultural lands, and of course our lecture on growth management. So I think my question to you guys would be, based on land use planning in the Philippines, the need for just defining what kinds of lands we need to protect, I guess, and then talking about growth management and how it's important to sort of regulate how development happens in our local areas. I think I can ask this question. What is situation are there it's something I really would like to know. Let's see. So, and then follow-up topic would be, if yes, please describe Sometimes there isn't anything there. If no, what would you like to describe how did it work? Just that, I think. A bit of a big question if I think about it. What is the current situation of your local community? So let's see here. For example, you're in Osamis. You mentioned earlier about the issue of safety in your local community. So what is um that's tricky because like it might become a bit too political. Just focus on the physical aspects and not so much the political aspects, like especially on infrastructure, water, electricity, housing, etc. How is that currently being handled, especially in that area? Because in Osamis, you mentioned a Delicia safe. It's not safe there. For Baronga, where you mentioned the city area is, or in this urban core, land is now at 7,000 per square kilometer or square meter. Just clarify that later. And then, are there existing growth management programs? Let's call it growth management programs. And then if they do exist, please describe how they work, because in my experience in the Philippines, I haven't really had the time to really dig into that. And then if no, how would you go about creating such a program? And to help you to answer these questions, I'll show you now the uh, basically the reference to create this PowerPoint here. See MUP over here, MUD day, sorry. These are actually the readings for next session. This is Kelly and Porter. So this is over here, growth management. So we basically skipped or like summarized the urban sprawl discussion, and now we're up to here. And then the original documents are here. I'll put it into our Google Drive. Let's make sure to label it properly. So this is Kelly's discussion on public services. 11 pages. That's not too bad. And then let me show the slide here. We got Kelly chapter 4 and Porter chapter 5. I'll just show it so when you download it, you know it's the correct one. So this is the one this is Porter chapter 5. Where is Kelly chapter 4? Okay, here we go. No, that's Porter as well. And that's chapter 3. Here, Kelly chapter 3. This one I didn't get to touch on in the slides, but you can refer to it. It's a bit, because mostly because the scan isn't so good, but at least it has maps here. And we can also use it as a reference. It's a bit longer, mostly because it's just one page. The other ones are shorter because it's 2 pages per slide. So this is Kelly chapter 9, Kelly chapter 3, Porter chapter 5, and now I just need to find Kelly chapter 4. Window. Porter 4. No, this is Kelly 4, not Porter 4. Okay. So these are your reference books. So chapter 4 of Kelly. Okay. Sorry, this one is actually not included in chapter 9. So you got 3 and 4 over here. And then, let me see, Porter chapter 5. So these are the 3 readings which you'll be using to create this assignment. And since it's a midterm report, I will give you a week. So let's have it due next week at March 25. You can submit it all the way up. Let's just use the whole that's 11:30, 12, 11:30, 12:30, 12:30. The whole 4 hours. Subject time for the research. You can use an extra hour from today to start your research. And if you have any questions, I will stay online. And then submission, we'll only have submissions on the 25th, so that on April 1, we'll have I think we can do a reporting maybe based on your our presentations based on your reports. So let me just clean up the names of these files so they're not going to confuse me anymore. I'll just call this save as, see, chapter 5 Porter. Managing development of infrastructure. Okay. Okay, maybe Squires is in here somewhere. It's just on a weird name. Let's call it protecting environmental and natural resources. Environ. This is a key issue specifically for the Philippines, where we are known for our natural resources, but lately, I think for the past 20 years, we have been trading our natural resources for more, I guess, generic commercial and industrial uses. So we're losing our identity, our Philippine identity, and then just trading them off for short-term gains, maybe at best medium-term, like 10 to 15 years of sort of economic growth. But after that, you use it up and you don't get it back anymore. So as urban planners and designers, our goal is to look for the long term, 25, 30, 50 years down the line. Is it still usable? Is the land still working? Basically. So chapter 3, Kelly. Managing community expansion. Okay. Let me put this into our Google Drive, which again, just to make sure everyone has access to it, it's in module 0. So it will look like this on your screen. In files, reading materials, and PPTs. Make sure to log into your Gmail, your USC Gmail account, so they can get in here. So that's basically our assignment. Sorry for the hecticness and the overall unpreparedness. I was mishandling a lot of things this week. So let me share you these documents. Okay, and I will grade those who submitted a bit later. What do you call this? I'll give you the appropriate grade based on the amount of the quality of the work and how long it took to get it submitted. Okay, let me see. Desktop. Okay, MUD. 201N. Okay. Details. There you go. I can only load one at a time. Okay. Okay. So with that, I think there's a question here. Yes. Sir Ellie is very good at this because he was part of the Metro Cebu Development Board, from monocentric to polycentric growth type of development. We can discuss more on this because it's a bit more kanang technical after your report. For now, I just want you to analyze how your area is developing, and then if there are actually existing growth management programs. So it's not that difficult, just requires you to do a little bit of digging in your local community. And then I'll give to this, sir. I do not want to do this because they're already. Okay. Yeah, so for me, okay, if you're all in the same area. If you want to do another area, that's fine. As long as it's an area na you're familiar with. Now, you won't have problems accessing the data. Okay, that's really the main issue with research. If you don't have access to the data, how can you do a research? So I don't have a preference whether you do it in your hometown or an area that you're not from. As long as you have access to the data of that area, go ahead and do it. For me, just the benefit of doing it in your hometown is that you can like immediately apply it. Okay, you're there in that space. And one of the other sort of major things Sir Neil Manhires taught me is that, yeah, if you have plans, especially for those who are in architecture, you can't apply the same plan in a different place. In the same way that you can't build the same kind of building in a different place. It needs to be contextualized to that local area for it to function properly. So it goes the same with urban planning and urban design as well. If you create a program or a plan design for a specific area, it's only applicable or it works best for that specific area and nowhere else. So we can't just copy paste. Okay. I think I'll stop recording here. Does anybody